the royal world was rocked by an unexpected revelation no one saw coming. Princess Charlene broke her silence with a chilling declaration: it was time to expose everything. For years, rumors of tension between Charlene and Prince Albert lingered within palace walls, but nothing could have prepared Monaco for what followed. Reports described Charlene as furious and Albert as heartbroken, some even said he was brought to tears. What secrets lay hidden behind the palace doors? Why is Charlene choosing to speak out now? The truth about Princess Charlene and Prince Albert is more explosive than anyone could have imagined. Their so-called royal fairy tale never truly existed. Prince Albert of Monaco first saw Charlene Whitstock at a swimming competition in 2000. Photographers captured what looked like the beginning of a royal love story. Charlene, a South African Olympic swimmer, carried the poise of a ballerina and the quiet elegance of someone seemingly destined for royal life. Albert, the sovereign prince of a small but opulent nation, came from a legacy of grandeur still searching for relevance in the modern era. On the surface, they looked perfect, but perfection often hides chaos. Their official romance didn't begin until 2005, when they reconnected and started appearing together publicly. They debuted their relationship at the 2006 Winter Olympics. Charlene's composed demeanor and Albert's apparent readiness to settle down, after years of bachelorhood and paternity controversies, charmed royal watchers. The press hailed her as the new Grace Kelly, a comparison that, in time, would prove more ominous than flattering. The palace announced their engagement in June 2010. It was meant to be a moment of joy for Monaco, a continuation of its most glamorous royal lineage. But behind the scenes, warning signs were already flashing. By the time their July 2011 wedding approached, rumors swirled, not about the ceremony's details, but about whether the bride even wanted to go through with it. Reports emerged that Charlene had attempted to flee Monaco 3 times before the wedding. One story claimed she sought refuge at the South African embassy in Paris. Another suggested palace staff had taken her passport. The palace denied these claims, but photos from the wedding told their own tale, a bride wiping away tears not of joy, but of visible distress. Nevertheless, the show went on. The wedding turned into a 3-day affair filled with operas, designer gowns, celebrities, and royal pageantry. Wearing a custom Giorgio Armani gown, Charlene played her role with silent grace. Prince Albert posed for the cameras, but his bride's lack of eye contact and persistent tears dominated international headlines. Whispers of a runaway bride surfaced in the media, though officially, everything was said to be fine. After the wedding, Charlene's life appeared carefully choreographed: public events, hand waves, and photo ops. But something felt off. She rarely addressed the media, her smile often looked strained, and she was frequently absent. Explanations cited illness, travel, or private commitments, but a pattern was emerging: Charlene was slowly vanishing. Still, the palace maintained the image of unity. In 2014, the birth of twins, Prince Jacques and Princess Gabriella, offered hope that the couple had found stability. Yet reality was far more complex. Even after becoming a mother, Charlene remained distant. Insiders said she seemed torn between royal responsibility and emotional detachment. For a time, the public wanted to believe in the fairy tale. After all, Monaco had lost Grace Kelly decades earlier, perhaps Charlene could be a new chapter. But the murmurs grew louder. In 2021, Charlene's visit to South Africa, initially attributed to a sinus infection, turned into a months-long absence. Speculation exploded. Was it truly for medical reasons, or was she quietly escaping? The official explanation failed to convince many. From the start, this fairy tale seemed misaligned with reality. Now, years later, Charlene appears unwilling to continue the charade. Her silence, her smile, and her distance weren't traits of a shy royal, they were signs of something much deeper. The cracks weren't just within the palace, they existed in the very story the world had been sold. One of the most telling factors was betrayal. Just weeks before the wedding in 2011, a scandal surfaced that would deeply unsettle Charlene's already fragile standing in the palace. A Brazilian woman stepped forward, claiming Prince Albert had fathered her daughter during the early stages of his relationship with Charlene. The timing could not have been worse. To outsiders, it was just another tabloid headline. Inside the palace, it was a ticking bomb. Already plagued by doubt, Charlene now faced the possibility that her fiancé had been dishonest with her, and with the world. Even more damaging, this wasn't his first paternity controversy. Albert had previously acknowledged 2 other children born out of wedlock, one with a Togo-born flight attendant, another with an American estate agent. Both cases were resolved with financial arrangements and minimal public discussion. The palace aimed for transparency, hoping the world would simply move on. And for a while, it did. But this new claim struck differently. The Brazilian woman alleged the child was conceived in 2005, after Albert and Charlene had made their relationship public. If true, it meant he had deceived her at a crucial moment. His legal team dismissed the claim as a jealous fabrication, but the damage was done. For Charlene, it wasn't about the legal wrangling, it was about trust, loyalty, and whether her future husband had ever been fully committed to her, or if she was just a piece in a carefully constructed royal image. She never publicly addressed the issue. She didn't need to. The timing of her attempted escapes now made more sense. According to media in France and South Africa, Charlene tried to leave Monaco several times, once from Paris, again during the Grand Prix, and finally just days before the wedding. Each time, palace staff reportedly intervened. One account even claimed her passport was seized to ensure the wedding took place. The palace dismissed these reports as absurd, but they never fully disappeared. Then came the wedding. Charlene walked down the aisle with a composed expression, broken only by flashes of emotion she couldn't hide. She cried at the altar, more than once. Some called them tears of joy, but many weren't convinced. Cameras caught the unease and hesitation. Albert looked composed, but Charlene did not. The public was left puzzled. Why go through with it? Why not just walk away? To those familiar with royal life, the answer was clear. This wasn't just a marriage, it was a political statement, a national event, a symbol. Charlene wasn't only marrying a man, she was entering a contract with an institution. She was becoming a symbol of continuity, stability, and legacy for a nation built on appearances. In the years that followed, the Brazilian paternity scandal quietly disappeared from public discourse. The child involved never surfaced publicly. No DNA results were ever released. The story simply faded away, like many royal rumors tend to. But its effect lingered, especially for Charlene, and for those who had witnessed the situation and started to question what truly happened behind palace walls. The most unsettling question remained, did Charlene ever have a real choice? Or was she trapped, by image, obligation, and the relentless machinery of monarchy, into living a life she hadn't fully chosen? The truth didn't vanish. It waited. And Charlene never forgot. Beneath the glamour, there was ice. For a time, Charlene fulfilled her royal duties without complaint. She smiled, waved, and attended events in exquisite gowns beside Prince Albert. She posed with their twins, Jack and Gabriella, in carefully orchestrated family portraits. But behind the royal veneer, something felt increasingly off. Her eyes lacked warmth. Her voice was seldom heard. And soon, her appearances grew sparse. Observers took notice. So did the press. Questions piled up. Why was Charlene absent from major events? Why did Prince Albert appear alone at summits and galas? Why were palace statements about her absence so vague? The answers were always the same: illness, fatigue, recovery, but the details never quite aligned. Then, in 2021, Charlene disappeared completely. The official story claimed she was stranded in South Africa due to a serious ear, nose, and throat infection contracted during a charity mission. She needed several surgeries and was reportedly too ill to fly. That explanation held for a while, but as the months passed, doubt crept in. She remained away for 6 months, missing her 10th wedding anniversary and important national events. Monaco remained silent. The rumors swelled. Some suggested she was using the illness as an escape. Others believed she had no plans to return. Paparazzi photos showed her looking thin and distant, detached from the royal spectacle she had once endured. When she did share updates, her tone was subdued. Her smile, when it appeared, was fleeting. Prince Albert worked to steady the narrative. He made solo public appearances, brought the children along, and told the press that Charlene was improving and just needed rest. But his assurances began to feel more like desperate appeals. Behind the palace scenes, it became clear this was more than a health crisis, it was a deeper unraveling. Updates came only through Charlene's team and never from her directly. Her absence stretched from spring into late fall. When she finally returned to Monaco in November, everything had changed. Physically, she was back, but emotionally, she seemed distant. Just days after her return, the palace announced she would be stepping back from her duties indefinitely and entering a treatment center for severe exhaustion. The location was never officially disclosed, though reports placed her in Switzerland. In a rare moment of honesty, Albert acknowledged they were facing a difficult time. He asked for understanding, but public opinion had already turned. The timeline of her silence, the stories of pre-wedding distress, and this prolonged disappearance formed a narrative that couldn't be explained away by illness alone. This was now about autonomy. About control. About a woman who had spent years performing the role of princess and was now silently pushing back. Even during her brief return, Charlene's demeanor had shifted. She stood taller. She rarely smiled. Her interactions with Albert were minimal, and in photos, they looked more like colleagues than a couple. Reports from insiders suggested she was drawing hard boundaries, that she'd reached a breaking point and would no longer be silenced. In a world that prizes appearances, Charlene wasn't making loud declarations, she was pulling back, refusing to fit the mold anymore. If rumors were to be believed, she was just beginning. The ice beneath the surface wasn't a sign of coldness, it was her way of surviving. And slowly, it began to thaw. By the time she reappeared in 2022, something about Charlene was unmistakably different. Her cool reserve remained, but now it seemed intentional, like armor she had chosen to wear. She no longer hid behind polished style. Her hair was cropped short, her fashion sharper and more expressive. She was no longer dressing for the palace, she was dressing for herself. Albert, too, had changed. Once the unshakable, distant ruler, he now seemed softer, even diminished beside Charlene's new self-possession. He no longer set the rhythm of their public life. Now, he looked like a man trying to keep up. The shift in power dynamics was obvious, even if unspoken. Insiders hinted that Charlene was no longer willing to follow the old rules. She had taken control of her schedule, her public image, and even decisions about their children's appearances. She wasn't requesting change, she was asserting it. And Albert didn't push back. Surprisingly, he seemed almost at peace with it. A palace source remarked, "She's in charge now, and he's letting her." Some interpreted this as guilt. Others, as love. And some saw a man finally realizing he had asked too much for too long. Whatever the motivation, Charlene's return was no accident. It was strategic. Where Albert once demanded full oversight of her movements, he was now scaling back. He'd even reportedly stopped the surveillance that had once shadowed her, granting her greater privacy. One significant moment came when Charlene attended a charity event alone. She walked in with quiet confidence, her expression calm, her smile faint but genuine. When asked about her absence, she offered only 5 words: "I needed time." No palace scripted statement. No elaboration. Yet those 5 words spoke louder than any press release. Albert's behavior shifted too. Gone were the photo ops where he reached for her hand or posed cheerfully. Now, he stood beside her with a more cautious, almost respectful energy. At one event, he was seen stepping back to let Charlene lead. It was subtle, but telling. For a prince trained to command, it felt like an act of deference. Insiders revealed that Albert had eased his grip and was being more considerate of Charlene's needs, giving her room to make her own choices. Some claimed he'd become more emotional behind closed doors. One report said he even cried during a private family meeting, whispering, "I just want peace." Whether that's true or not, the change in their relationship was impossible to miss. So was Charlene. Once seen as the quiet figure lingering in the background, she had now become the focal point, not through palace-driven publicity, but by the strength of her own presence. Albert, on the other hand, appeared trapped in a mix of regret and resignation. The media once again speculated about the state of their marriage. Were they living separately in silence? Were they redefining the terms of their relationship behind closed doors? Or had they simply chosen to live parallel lives under the same ornate roof? What stood out most was that Charlene no longer seemed to care about public perception. That, more than anything, shook the palace. Her sense of freedom, emotional, psychological, and possibly soon physical, was no longer abstract. It was becoming tangible. The pressure that had once burdened Charlene now seemed to rest on Albert. He had crafted the narrative, arranged the stage, yet the spotlight was shifting. The woman he once believed he could mold was preparing to speak, and the world was not ready for what she had to say. Her next words would leave a lasting impact. Then came the moment that reverberated across Monaco and beyond. In a filmed solo interview, Princess Charlene declared, "It's time to reveal absolutely everything. Time to tell the truth." The statement was not only courageous, it was explosive. Sources close to the royal household revealed that Prince Albert was in tears upon viewing the footage for the first time. The interview aired without palace approval or warning. In it, Charlene spoke openly and with a quiet but unmistakable fury about her life within the royal family. Her delivery was measured, but the underlying frustration was undeniable. She confessed to years of silence, driven largely by loyalty and, at times, fear and pressure. But she had reached a breaking point. The emotional toll was too great, and she was finally ready to speak her truth. For years, speculation had swirled about Charlene's unhappiness, her extended absences from royal engagements, and her retreat from the spotlight. This marked the first time she directly addressed the emotional strain of her role and made it clear that the fairy tale image portrayed to the public did not reflect her true reality. She admitted the image presented was a performance. Behind closed doors, her life was quite different. She described feeling isolated and constantly watched. As she put it, "I didn't feel free." Although she did not mention Prince Albert by name, the implications were obvious. The timing, just weeks after a visibly strained appearance at a charity event, only fueled speculation that their relationship had reached a breaking point. Sources close to Charlene indicated she had intentionally filmed the interview at a separate location to avoid any outside influence. Prince Albert was reportedly blindsided by the release and deeply affected. One senior aide told a French outlet that he appeared visibly shaken and cried upon seeing it. "No one expected this to go public the way it did," the aide said. In the interview, Charlene also alluded to moments long discussed in the media, most notably, her reported attempts to flee Monaco before the 2011 wedding. While she didn't confirm the full extent of those rumors, she did reveal that her passport had been taken from her. "When you told to smile for the cameras anyway," she said, "you start to understand what control really looks like." Her words reignited public interest in the early years of her marriage and raised new questions about her long absences in 2021. At the time, the palace had cited health issues for her extended stay in South Africa. However, her comments now suggest those months were also about reclaiming personal freedom. The reaction was immediate. News outlets around the world reported the story within hours. Social media flooded with support for Charlene, while royal experts scrambled to determine what the revelations meant for Monaco's monarchy. The palace issued a brief, unusually vague statement asking for discretion and understanding during what they described as a sensitive period. Whether this signals a separation, a complete dissolution of a long-troubled marriage, or a shift into something entirely new is still unclear. But what's evident is that Charlene is no longer remaining silent. Those close to Albert say he has never appeared more alone. Her words may very well reshape the future of Monaco's royal family. In the aftermath of her disclosure, Monaco found itself unmoored, its carefully curated image shattered, its private truths exposed. The world repeated her words, "It's time to reveal absolutely everything." Public sentiment, which had previously wavered between compassion and doubt, solidified quickly. For many, Charlene's anger felt warranted, not surprising. Inside the palace, the atmosphere changed dramatically. Insiders report that Prince Albert has withdrawn from public life, cancelling engagements, and retreating to the private Rock-Agel estate. Aides described him as heartbroken and in shock, struggling to accept the unraveling of a marriage he once believed could endure. Meanwhile, Charlene has made no follow-up statements and offered no clarifications. Those close to her say she believes she said all that needed to be said. One confidant remarked, "She said what needed to be said." Now, Monaco must decide how to respond. Speculation is rampant. Some suggest a quiet, private separation may be underway. Others think Charlene may disappear from public life altogether, turning her focus to her children and personal pursuits. Few believe, however, that things will ever return to the way they were. The long-maintained illusion of a fairy tale has been broken. What remains is something rawer, more difficult to manage, but also more authentic. Charlene's choice to finally speak has transformed public perception, not just of her marriage, but of the monarchy itself. For Prince Albert, the path ahead is uncertain. For Princess Charlene, perhaps for the first time, the future is hers to shape.